Welcome into a fresh new hour of CBS Sports HQ presented by Canva. Love your work. I'm Jordan Giorgio. We're gearing up to watch two of the top teams in the NFC clash on Thursday Night Football tonight in a key matchup in the division. Kickoff from Ford Field in Detroit is set for 8:15 p.m. Eastern, where the Lions are 3.5-point favorites against the Green Bay Packers. Now, the last time Detroit faced Green Bay, Lions wideout Amon-Ra St. Brown caused a little bit of a ruckus. You remember it. The star wideout wore a quote-unquote Green Bay sucks hoodie walking into Lambeau Field, and no one, especially the Packers, have forgot about that.
St. Brown had that Green Bay sucks shirt last time. Was that just something silly? Who cares? Or is it something that kind of...
Yeah, I ain't worried about him. We're not worried about him.
He's not worried about me. They're not worried about me.
Are you worried about him?
Am I worried about him? I mean, he's a good player.
No, that's not my question. I'm waiting for a yes or no.
Can I finish?
Yeah.
Like I said, he's a good player. Am I worried about him? I wouldn't say I'm worried about him.
Are you worried about anybody on the Green Bay team?
Am I worried about anybody?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm worried about anybody, no.
Okay, did you pick up on that? Not a worry in the world. That's what we like to call bulletin board material. Joining me now from afar to talk more about this, Mike Renner and Kyle Long. Kyle, I'll start with you because you know firsthand what it's like to be a part of an NFC North rivalry. Give us a taste from the players' perspective and why you're not surprised at all with all the chirping we're seeing ahead of game day.
I mean, this is so on brand. This is exactly what the fans want as well. We saw him go into the stadium. He didn't even spell Green Bay right. He didn't even put a space in there. It was just Green Bay sucks. I think he's trolling doubly there. But as it pertains to the matchup, it's always fun playing in the NFC North because you get the great weather games. You get the bad weather games. You know these guys as well as anybody. But tonight we're going to see them indoors, so it's going to be a bit of a track meet at Ford Field.
Most definitely. You know, Mike, it's a big game, especially for the Lions, who are on the verge of a playoff berth. An 11 straight win would punch their ticket and also mark a franchise record. Is anyone catching up to this team, who are currently the Super Bowl favorites? It's interesting because I think when we think back to when Aiden Hutchinson went down, I think many believe this whole season was just a wash for the Detroit Lions. Looking back, how impressive, Mike, have the Lions actually been with the win streak since then?
Yeah, it's especially impressive on the defensive side of the ball. Everyone knows the offense, right? Everyone knows this is the best offense in the NFL so far this season. They present so many matchup problems for you. They're going to put up points. But I don't think anyone saw coming that even after Aiden Hutchinson went down, this is still a top 5 defense in terms of points per game in the NFL. And they've done it with a lot of backups. It speaks to what Brad Holmes has done, developing a roster that can suffer a bunch of big injuries and still get the job done on the defensive side of the football. So, yeah, they're number 1 seed right now, but that Eagles team at 10-2, I'd be very worried about the Lions if I were the Lions right now, just because they have such a difficult schedule going into the barn. But they've passed every test so far. So if I'm a Lions fan, I'm still pretty darn happy.
Yeah, Mike, I'm feeling good if I'm a Lions fan as well. This is what the culture can do. You can sustain injuries, and usually teams like this, I call it death by 1,000 cuts. You just cannot sustain these type of injuries. But to your point, the most impressive part about this team is them banding together with guys dropping seemingly every week in pairs almost, and they still find a way. Aaron Glenn has done such a great job, and obviously Dan Campbell has these guys ready to play every week. The Detroit Lions are scary, but man, oh man, in the NFC North, anything can happen. Against this Green Bay Packers team, I'm going to have my eyes glued to this game tonight.
Yeah, so will we. Mike, I'm glad that you brought up how the Lions are not really out of the woods yet. Obviously, fans should be happy right at this moment. But you also mentioned the Eagles. You know, in their own division, though, right now for the Lions, even with a potential 11th straight franchise record win, we could have a scenario where the NFC North has 3 14-win team. So let's break it all down for you as you take a look at this graphic. It all starts tonight, obviously. If the Packers beat the Lions, okay, the Vikings would have to finish 4-1 with only 1 loss to the Packers. And Green Bay would have to win the final 5 games of their season. So, Mike, just your reaction to this potential chaos.
Yeah, I think early in the season, on a Push in the Pile episode, I thought the NFC North would have been the best division in football next season. I thought with all the young quarterbacks, with just the direction of these franchises, this was on pace to be the best division of football in 2025. Well, we're a year ahead of schedule right now, and this division could be setting records for what they're doing, and rightfully so, because these are 3 of the 4 best teams in the NFC. The Eagles, who I mentioned earlier, they're the other one. But the Super Bowl is going to go through the NFC North in some way, shape, or form this season. These are complete football teams. They're young football teams. And for the rest of the NFL, NFC North's reign is going to be for a while here.
Yes, big fan of the NFC North. What a powerhouse of a conference, or a division rather. And I knew it was going to be an arms race when Kevin O'Connell came to the NFC North. Obviously, Matt LaFleur is brilliant, and Caleb Williams in Chicago, all of these quarterbacks. But the story of this division, and I think tonight, will be the defense, Jordan. That's going to be what it comes down to, how these teams are able to keep the other group off the field. That's really what it comes down to in this arms race.
All right, let's go ahead and piggyback off of that, Kyle, because we mentioned it. It all starts tonight if the Packers do win against the Lions. But how do they get it done? What's their path, Kyle?
They got to keep Jared Goff off the field. And, I mean, this guy's been unbelievable this year. When David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs are rolling, this offensive line, just rolling the defensive line off the line of scrimmage, it allows Jared Goff to be comfortable. They do what they want offensively. But the X factor to me is the running game for the Green Bay Packers. Josh Jacobs, he's going to have to be a stalwart for this group. He cannot come off the field. Matt LaFleur's got to get creative, find a way to drain that clock for that offense of the Lions on the sideline, make sure they can't have this hot streak offensively.
Yeah, they really have to warm Jared Goff up. It's going to start with taking advantage of the fact that Taylor Decker, left tackle for the Detroit Lions, is out in this game. And when you have a backup on the blind side, that can lead to forced fumbles, that can lead to big sacks. That's the matchup that Lucas Van Ness, your second-year defensive end, your first-round pick from a year ago, he has to win and win consistently in this game if the Packers are going to have a chance. Because with that big injury, if they can't take advantage of it, and it's still these pockets that Jared Goff's become accustomed to, where he has all day and this big wide arc to step up into, if that's the case, I don't know how the Packers win this football game.
All right, we're breaking down the Thursday night football matchup between the Detroit Lions and Green Bay Packers, presented by Canva. Love your work. I did hear your X factor, Kyle. That is running back for Green Bay, Josh Jacobs. But Mike, who is your X factor in this one?
I think it's got to be Zadarius Smith. Former Packer. He is now on the Lions. In 3 games, he has 17 pressures for the Lions. He is their pass rush off the edge, and they're down so many defensive linemen in this one. Not only Aiden Hutchinson and Marcus Davenport, who haven't been there in a while, but now they're going to be down DJ Reader, Levi Nwuzurike, Josh Pascal. It is just Aleem McNeil and Zadarius Smith along the defensive line. Now, that's enough in pass pro, but those guys got to make some plays in run defense, too, and keep Josh Jacobs, Kyle's X factor, off the football field. So it's Zadarius Smith against his former team. I fully expect him to go off in this one.
All right, we'll look forward to both of those players tonight. A kickoff slated for 8:15 from Ford Field. Can't let you go without getting a game pick, as I mentioned off the top. Lions favored in this one at home by 3.5. The total set at 51.5. Usually I can get a sense for where you guys are going, but I'm not quite sure who you're riding with in this one. Kyle?
I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers, and I think it's because Hafley and his defense will force some turnovers for Jared Goff. Even if it's one, that will be the deciding factor.
Give me the Packers as well. They did this last year. They lost the game at home, and then they went to Detroit and blew them out on Thanksgiving. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I think we see the similar pattern here with that ugly loss early in the season for the Green Bay Packers. Revenge game this week. I think the passing attack, a little too much for the Lions to overcome. I think they have some big plays on the football field, and I think they win this one.
Wow. All right. Let the chaos scenarios commence then, because it all begins tonight at Ford Field. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining me here, breaking down the Thursday night football matchup between the Green Bay Packers and Detroit Lions. You can catch more from the guys on the Pushing the Pile podcast. You can scan that QR code on your screen and watch and listen wherever you get your podcasts.